Hello, dear viewers, and thank you for joining us once again on the channel where we don't just follow the headlines, we trace every hidden contour behind them. If glossy press releases are the castle walls, think of us as the candle slipping under the door, illuminating the anxious whispers drifting through drafty corridors. Tonight we explore the story insiders have begun calling the slow-ticking clock at the center of the Crown King Charles III's complicated, quietly escalating health battle. Officially, Buckingham Palace still frames the situation in tidy phrases, the kind polished by generations of courtiers until they all but sparkle. The king is receiving ongoing treatment, he remains in good spirits, his doctors are pleased with his progress. Yet every seasoned royal watcher knows those reassuring lines can mask an undertow, and the undertow here is swirling harder each week. The first tremor surfaced when Charles, 76, stepped back from public engagements late last year for what aides called a corrective procedure on an enlarged prostate. At the time, journalists treated it as routine, unpleasant, perhaps, but hardly a threat to the crown. Then, barely a fortnight later, the palace let slip that additional tests had revealed a separate concern. That concern was described only as a form of cancer. No staging, no prognosis, no organ identified. Just enough truth to satisfy transparency, just enough ambiguity to fuel 1,000 private worries. Since then, the palace's strategy has been a tightrope walk, present an image of unbroken continuity, while quietly conceding that the monarch's stamina is not what it was even a spring ago. Day by day his timetable is now plotted like a military campaign. Courtiers study whiteboard grids marked with 3 colors. Green for engagements Charles will almost certainly manage, yellow for those penciled in but likely to be shortened, red for events that will evaporate the moment his hematology numbers dip. In theory the public sees only the successful green squares, but last-minute cancellations have begun to leak into the news cycle, evidence that the yellow and red markers are multiplying. What does side effects management actually look like behind palace doors? A discreet convoy of vehicles departing Clarence House at dawn, windows shaded to keep photographers guessing. A private oncology wing sealed off for half-day infusions. A rotating squad of personal physicians, each specializing in some minute corner of the complex human machine, one to track immune suppression, another for cardiac strain, another for drug interactions that might interfere with long-standing medications prescribed for a lifetime of duty-induced aches. One insider confided to a veteran royal reporter, "There are mornings he wakes with energy, determined to prove everyone wrong. Then there are afternoons when even 10 minutes at a lectern feels like climbing Ben Nevis." Against this, Charles's stubborn work ethic has turned almost legendary. Staff say if he is conscious he is working, signing CR on diplomatic papers from bed, hosting ministers in a private sitting room stocked with hand sanitizer, breaking protocol by appearing before camera crews in a slightly rumpled cashmere cardigan, because changing into formal dress would sap too much strength. He jokes about it. The royal sense of humor can be surprisingly dark, referring to his stand as "my second scepter." But watchers who know his face see the fatigue etched a little deeper each month. And so another subtle shift is playing out in the wings, a delicate redistributing of the monarchy's invisible load. The hardest working woman in Britain once wore a crown, now her daughter-in-law wears the worry lines. Catherine, Princess of Wales, is herself undergoing preventative chemotherapy in a saga that would swamp a lesser family with pure exhaustion. Yet she and Prince William have quietly doubled their weekly briefings. Lawyers, private secretaries, regional ambassadors, all now loop William in first, just in case. Friends say he shrugs off the phrase, but he keeps the files close. For Catherine, the dynamic is even more intricate. Between her own recovery appointments, she practices what insiders call stealth matriarchy, crafting spaces of gentle normalcy for George, Charlotte and Louis even as their grandfather's uncertain horizon creeps closer. She reads them adventure novels aloud after supper, emphasizing stories where the hero learns courage in small, daily acts. She has, according to one palace confidant, redrawn the boundary around those children like a ring of oak. The children know their grandfather is unwell. They also know family love is not measured in hours of balcony time, but in whispers, hand squeezes, and hot chocolate in the nursery when the press has gone. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla stands guard on a different front. Publicly, she beams and waves and keeps the tone up-tempo. Privately, staff have noticed a new glassiness in her smile whenever photographers crowd too close to the king. Camilla has never been fond of long lens shots, but lately she has taken to blocking them bodily, all but daring the press to photograph Charles in a moment of weakness. One morning show commentator suggested this protective ferocity is helping her approval ratings. Another speculated the opposite, that the public interprets each tightened jaw as proof the diagnosis is worse than we're told. And then there is the question haunting every seasoned observer: contingency. In sober legal language it is called the Regency Act, that dusty statute providing for a council of state should a monarch become medically unfit. The palace and Downing Street both insist such measures are still hypothetical. Yet behind leather-bound doors, constitutional advisers are updating briefing papers last glanced at when Queen Elizabeth II's health began to falter in her twilight months. One slip to the press, one misfiled email, and the nation would see how real those preparations have become. So the corridors hum with nervous energy. Nobody wants to rehearse out loud, but everyone wants to be ready. The public, for its part, is navigating a complicated sympathy fatigue. 40 years of royal scandals conditioned some to treat Windsor news with an ironic eyebrow. Now, confronted by genuine human frailty, many Britons find themselves unexpectedly protective. Cards and hand-knitted blankets flood Buckingham Palace's delivery gates. Church groups hold candlelit vigils for His Majesty's full restoration. Yet in the same breath, social media dissects his every public wobble. A single photo of Charles seated a second too soon sparks speculation. Is it neuropathy? Orthostatic hypertension? Or simply courtesy to an aging king? In normal times the monarchy's mystique is upheld by distance. People love the spectacle yet accept they will never fully know these gilded figures. Illness erodes that wall. 4 poles, compression stockings, discreet aids offering an elbow, these are achingly familiar sights to anyone who has sat bedside with a loved one. When a monarch ages in real time, the pomp can paradoxically feel more intimate, not less. We project our private hospital memories onto the crimson throne, the beep of monitors beneath organ music, the smell of antiseptic clinging to ermine robes. All of which leaves the crown at a crossroads. Charles's doctors continue fighting, Charles himself continues insisting on relevance, and the public continues oscillating between calm reassurance and morbid curiosity. Yet that slow-ticking clock grows louder. One veteran footman, nearing retirement himself, summed up the palace mood in 5 spare words: we carry on, until we can't. Should the day arrive when can't becomes unavoidable, an unprecedented scenario unfolds. The baton would pass to a prince and princess, who have already walked through their own valley of shadows. William would inherit not only crown and commonwealth, but also the heartbreak-etched empathy learned at Catherine's bedside. Some constitutional experts quietly predict a gentler reign, one hyper-aware of mortality's shadow, and thus more willing to modernize rituals that no longer serve. Until then, every new medical bulletin, every ambiguous phrase about routine cycles and positive indicators will be read like tea leaves scattered on Georgian silver. The king will wave from Land Rover windows, Camilla will usher him forward with disguised anxiety, and the next generation will keep their ears tuned for the moment father becomes sovereign. And we, dear viewers, will remain here to chronicle it all: the solemn state openings, the whispered cancellations, the small triumphs when Charles steps onto a raised dais without assistance, and the tense hush when he does not. Now we'd love to hear from you. Does witnessing this frailer, more human side of monarchy deepen your connection, or does it make you question the burden hereditary duty can impose? Are you comforted by the palace's steady assurances, or have you begun reading between the lines? Let us know in the comments. Your reflections turn these reports from mere news bulletins into a genuine conversation. If today's exploration offered you new perspective, please tap that like button. It helps other thoughtful royal watchers discover this space. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and ring the bell. That way you'll never miss the next chapter in this poignant, ever-shifting royal saga. Thank you for staying with us. We'll return soon with more stories from the unfolding tapestry of Britain's royal family, stories of resilience, duty, and the fragile humanity that lives beneath every crown.